Hello, I'm Sora Luxon, and this is the Hanged Man tarot card, sometimes referred to by experienced occultists as the Enlightened Man. Again, this is a trump card. It's a member of the greater or major arcana. And so it isn't referencing a human force, but a greater cosmic or divine power. And so it's going to carry that attribution of that message rather than the implications of man or of an individual or of mankind. So that's something to keep in mind here. This is notably one of the most esoterically elaborate cards in the deck, with very real and very many concealed levels of symbolically elusive meaning, and it's being given to the reader for the honing of intuition. This is an image of sacrifice. Obviously, right? We can see that here. But since we already know it doesn't refer to human forces, we can also go ahead and assume that sacrifice isn't going to be human or that of a physical body. Here, what is being rendered up is the base or baser or lesser. We're rendering the lesser to the higher, right? By pushing the high into the low faculties, the low can be lightened. We can raise the low by allowing the greater or greatest to descend into physicality, for instance. That physicality can be shifted, changed, transmuted beyond the limitations of matter, which might sound odd. So another way to think of it, if you're looking at this card, is the Hanged Man hanging, right? We know this is esoteric knowledge. This is hidden knowledge. So the Hanged Man probably isn't hanging, right? The halo he is adorned by and his bent legs suggest that he's okay with this situation, right? So is he hanging or is he floating? If he's floating because of this transcendental state, doesn't matter to him which direction he floats in. If you could levitate, right? For instance, if you could levitate, do you think you'd really care which way was up or which way was down, right? Or would you feel the difference, or would up and down feel the same? And maybe the only tether remaining that you could feel would be a far lessened tether, maybe only around one ankle, which would still hold you to a plane of matter, right? Because you're levitating, but you're still in your body and you're still constrained to the confines of a material earthly plane. So now these bonds in this card, right? You can see this. They've been mostly surpassed or changed or encompassed and internalized, these matter bonds. Divinity has been allowed to descend into the self, right? And you can see this because it can't help but also give signs of itself externally by shining forth. This is a great and powerful spirit of the flow, right? So moving on, in smaller, more referential ways, if you're doing a reading, this card is showing right side up, right? It's showing rather counterintuitively, as I've already suggested, freedom from restrictions or constraints, achieving new perspectives, or coming at things from an inspired awareness, right? An entirely higher or raised angle that others haven't yet achieved an ability to perceive, maybe. It can be referring to dissolving old constrictive habits. You might have some bad habits in place, right? And it's removing those. Or getting rid of restraining methods or restraining ways of thinking. Even though someone, or maybe a lot of someone's around you, think you are off your head entirely. It doesn't matter. You're getting rid of that old way of thinking, right? People might think you've entirely flipped. This is a higher consciousness card, after all, and everyone is on their own path and moving at their own rate of consciousness. So if this card's pointing to you, right? If it's pointing out your enlightened thinking or your divinely inspired courses of action, these things in you, then you need to also recognize that some people just aren't going to be able to see those changes the way you see them. They aren't going to be able to see decisions that you're making as being incredibly awesome, right? The way that they are. They can't see it that way yet. To them, it might look like you're just totally wonky and upside down and off your head. That's all right. Not everyone is the enlightened man. Not everyone is the hanged man. Not everyone is chilling, ascended, with intuitive energy flowing through all their lesser character traits all the time. If you are, right, if this card is describing you, then you need to be okay with it. And you need to be okay with the fact that they're going to see you that way as being upside down, or seeing your thoughts or new ideas as being upside down. Just be all right with it. Remain true to yourself. Their perspective of how strange you look, act, think, it's simply a less informed perspective than the one the hanged man has come into sovereignty of, right? The hanged man's perspective is beyond a simpler or lesser plane. Some uncomfort and sacrifice is often necessary in order to ascend to a higher vantage point, right? You can't climb a mountain without climbing a mountain. And sometimes sacrifice is necessary to seek out and then maintain a higher wisdom. It's okay to be singled out and pointed out for being different, if that difference is in the service or pursuit of your own goals. This is a bit of a rebel card in that way, right? A break from conformity or from the herd. This is someone who's okay with having to experience inconvenience, right? I mean, this person doesn't look exactly comfortable, right? So here's someone who's completely all right with the inconvenience of being hung in order to hold their higher end goal or achieve their higher purpose, their enlightenment. Sometimes stuff isn't super comfortable. That's okay, right? If you're sick and you're getting over a cold and you're healing, that's not a super comfortable process to go through, but it's a necessary process. So it's all right. This is a calm and relaxed surrender inside that uncomfort, right? The hanged man is someone who's recovering from that cold and still needing to blow their nose 20 times an hour. But rather than complaining and whining, the hanged man is okay with it, is grateful that he's moving up and above and beyond, and this is what's necessary to get there, right? This is a person who's either in or was recently in a time of personal evolution, possibly, or great change. And they are being welcoming and accepting of that change, of that transformational process. It could also be someone who's choosing to pull back and be with themselves only, right? Someone who's breaking off from the herd to be alone on purpose, to focus on their internal selves for a time. Or someone who is perhaps not indecisive, but instead is patiently waiting for their own choice to come to them, or their own decision to come to them and then to make it. Sort of a sacred self-chosen moment of hermitage, right? To come to this correct decision without an external influence corrupting it, possibly. Sometimes that means that the querent, if you're doing a reading on a querent, or if you're the querent, it can mean that they're doing a lot of internal personal work on themselves. This could be meditation, maybe. Possibly, probably it could be referring to therapy. This is a card of intuition, insight, new ideas, out of the box, unconventional actions and thinking, inspiration. That's all wrapped up in this card. You know what this card really is? It's being woke. That is what I would call the hanged man, the enlightened man, right? Whether he got there by digging deep and making sacrifices over time and is still making them, or whether he's completely just kind of floating upside down and he's had this sudden brilliant epiphany, we don't know. But this is someone who is definitely woke the heck up. So what to do? If you pull this card, be okay with looking at things in a weird new light. Be okay with the strange new approach or perspective. Embrace the inspiration you're having, whatever it is, no matter how bizarre others might think it is. Nothing less than your own truth with a capital T is on the line here. So push yourself if you need to. Be okay with how you might be inconvenienced or obstacled, or how you might need to make some uncomfortable sacrifices or put up with some uncomfort during this journey, right? To find your journey, to find yourself, your best possible version of you, your truth. Listen to your own oddball ideas instead of ignoring them, and hold firm to them, right? If you're having inspirations or intuitions, hold firm to that anything that bubbles to the surface that you might otherwise usually ignore, look at it closely and look at stuff different. Permit yourself to grapple with new or difficult ideas or scenarios. Be all right with necessary mental wrestling, right? Sometimes we're not comfortable with that and we're like, oh, I'm fighting myself. I can't make up my own mind. That's the sort of thing we'll say. You can be all right with it. It can only serve to make you stronger. And you're doing it anyway, right? And it can only get you somewhere new in your own head. So sometimes you just need to be okay with it. Give that time, that mental space, over to that internal struggle willingly and calmly, and let it play out. See what new horizon, what new perspectives it lands you on. Or allow it to go on just so you can have that moment of higher awareness, right? That epiphany you might have been waiting on. You might need to let that struggle happen in your head in order for that epiphany to break through. So walk head on into what's difficult knowingly. This isn't the easy way out card, right? This guy doesn't look like he's having an easy time of it. So do the work you need to do to get to or past this change, whatever the change may be. Try something different, try something new, embrace it, and create change if you need to. Now, if you pull the Enlightened Man, the Hangman, in reverse, this is saying you're stuck. It's just that clear. You are stuck. You are hung up on something or someone, perhaps. You're trapped or being held captive to a pattern or a habit that you might have. You are caught up in outdated, old mode, traditional methods or routines, possibly ignorant traditions or behavioral or thought patterns that might have become useless and aren't serving you or anyone, but you're stuck with them and you're stuck inside of them. You are stuck. You're being pinned in place by social norms or social pressures. So you're sort of standing on one foot clownishly, right? Recognizing that you are off kilter, that you're not serving your highest purpose or highest truth, right? That you're not fully serving yourself or who or what you truly, genuinely, authentically are, right? Because you're being influenced to adhere to the mentality or behaviors of those around you. There's some real guilt in the reversal of the Hanged Man. So this is a person who's either engaged in self-shaming and now likely feels desperately alone in the crowd because of that shame that they're carrying and hiding, right? And their inability to uphold their own highest intentions. Or it could be someone who's got some very real guilt going on and is possibly posturing like they don't. Like they're just totally right and totally happy, while internally they absolutely know that it's just a pretense. Either way, there could definitely be some drinking or partying or a new low-slung Miata or other types of worldly material chemical endeavors, right? This is someone who might be trying to self-medicate their psyche behind a mask of pretended joy rather than having the genuine article. And sometimes it just means if you're the querent, it just means you really are stuck. It could just mean that you're stuck on some problem that you're trying to solve or can't quite solve, right? Some path you can't quite work out or see the end of or the way out like a maze. Some decision you can't quite make. You are just stuck. This is like writer's block or 3 blown tires on the side of a road in a rural highway, and you only get one passerby a day on this road, and there's no cell phone service, and you are there with your 3 blown tires on the side of that freeway, and it is hot, and you are waiting, and that is the kind of stuck we're talking about here. That's this kind of stuck. No divine messages or inspired ideas are coming in here. They are not getting through. Help is not coming anytime soon. You are just stuck. So what to do if you have the Hangman reversed in your reading? Don't do anything radical, right? Don't go trekking randomly out into the desert to look for a well that doesn't exist, right? Stay by the car. Stay on the road. Don't rock the boat. Sit in the car and wait for the guy from the tow company who already told you he won't be there for 6 hours, rather than trying to set a strange fire that's going to burn a nearby town down in order to signal a flare. Right? Don't do anything you need to be conformist, is what I'm saying here. That's what this card is telling you. Do the traditional thing, do the conformity thing. And just when the tow guy shows up, nod and agree with all of his normal and boring ideas on how to now replace your 3 blown tires. Obviously, this is a sort of a metaphor here that I'm using, right? It doesn't always mean you're stuck on the side of a road, but you're stuck. And you get the idea. The Hanged Man reversed is a stay calm and do the normal traditional thing card. It's kind of like when you're little, if your parents tell you if you get lost, stay still. That's what this card is telling you to do. Don't go off searching. Don't try to find help for some weird stranger. Stay still. Stay where you are. Wait for your parents to return to you. That is this card. There's stuff you can't control. Sometimes we are the child. At some point, we are all in a phase of being a child, right? We're all confronted with situations, right, where we are now the innocent or the confused or the unexperienced, right? And in that sense, we are the child. Well, guess what? Oh, well, it happens. We all have to do that, right? We all have to be a part of that and go through that process. So be okay with it. You're stuck. So be stuck. Stop yelling and kicking the tires and stubbing your own toe, right? You have a job here, right? And it's not to be angry about the fact that you're stuck on the side of the road. It's just to be stranded. Sometimes that is your purpose. So sit down, lean up against the hot, dusty, uncomfortable fender, and be jammed up. Be hung up. Be good and stuck. That's just the way it is sometimes, and be okay with it. Allow it. Let it. You'll be past it eventually when it's ready to be done with you. The faster you get there internally and externally, the faster it's going to be finished with you. The calmer and more accepting of the jam you're in you are, the more accepting of it you are, the quicker it's going to feel once you're past it, right? If you're screaming and yelling and angry what's going on and railing against it and ranting and just struggling endlessly against being stuck while you're stuck, that's going to feel like a very long, painful, drawn-out process. If you're able to look at the situation and say, I'm stuck and I just need to be stuck right now, and that's okay, it's going to feel short, it's going to feel brief, right? And then once you're past it, you'll be able to get back to all the awesome, inspired, intuitive, enlightened stuff. Until next time.